Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Buckeye Politics. It's me, your favorite Ohioan. So today we're doing the long-awaited political compass test. For me and myself, a lot of Buckeye Politics will be taking the political compass test. A lot of you guys have been wanting me to take this. My channel's grown a lot the past few months, and I went from being like this random channel with like a few hundred subscribers to suddenly being on the verge of hitting 1,000 subscribers. It's crazy to think about. But because of that, a lot of you have been wondering, because a lot of you watch my videos over and I talk about elections, but a lot of you are wondering what my actual political views are. So this is kind of just going to be to clear that up a little bit, so you can maybe learn a little bit more about me, because I have some very interesting political views. I definitely, to get this out of the way, I definitely lean a lot more to the right on most issues. I consider myself a conservative. However, I do have some very libertarian takes. I'm pretty anti-government, but I also do have some populist takes in terms of on certain issues such as like labor and economics. So I have very interesting politics. I will say that for sure. So with that, let's start taking this test. Not sure how long, gonna try to keep this video as short as possible, but it might go on a little longer than normal. So I do apologize if that is the case. So let's look at question number 1. If economic globalization is inevitable, it should primarily serve humanity rather than the interest of transnational corporations. Strongly agree. Economic globalization is one of the worst things our country is facing and the world is facing, quite frankly. We have these globalists who are sending our jobs overseas and they're getting rich off of it, and they're destroying our communities like mine. And here in a working class Ohio, I see the impacts of globalization every day. And you know what? A lot of people say, you know what? Yeah, this is wrong. But, we can still give the company some bit of power. We got to keep their interest in mind. No, fuck the companies. They sent our jobs overseas. They destroyed communities across the Midwest and the whole all of the United States and even a lot of places in Europe as well. Economic globalization is not only is it destroying communities in the Western world, but in places like the Africa, Asia. There's sweatshops. It's disgusting what these transnational corporations do. Listen, I'm a big supporter of small businesses. I think small businesses are the greatest thing ever. But big corporations, fuck them. I hate corporations. Corporations are gay and cringe. They send our jobs overseas, and they basically just run the world with their money and money and politics. So screw the corporations. Strongly agree. Sound like a socialist already, and we're having some hot takes less than a minute into the video. That's all right though. We're chilling. We're chilling. I'd always support my country whether it was right or wrong. Strongly agree. America is the greatest country on earth. No one chooses their country of birth, so it is foolish to be proud of it. Strongly disagree. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. You should be proud of where you're from. Our race has many superior qualities compared with other races. I disagree. Um, I've seen a lot of people say, well, is this between the human race and like animals, or is this between people of different skin colors? I've always interpreted this as different skin colors, and no, I think that there is. You can make an argument for some issues, but like overall, I think that honestly, black, white, Asian, whatever, we're all the same. I mean, you know what? We have different cultures and different backgrounds, but overall, in terms of just people, we're the same. There's no one's better than anyone else. However, because like I said, because of cultures and just family heritage, there are some minor minor things that may separate us, but overall, we are mostly the same. So nobody is superior than anyone else. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. I agree with that. Not strongly agree, but I do agree with that. We saw in World War II, we didn't necessarily like the Soviets, but they definitely played a big role in defeating the Nazis. So overall, I do agree with the statement, but there are some. I don't fully agree with it, but I do agree with it in most cases. Military action that defies international law is sometimes justified. I tend to agree with that. International law has some. International law is iffy. Some international law I do agree with. Obviously, genocide and like the obvious stuff is messed up. There's some international law that just makes it that literally just panders to like terrorists and other enemy countries. So I do agree you should follow international law. I do agree that if in a war scenario like what we're seeing in Ukraine, there are scenarios that where international law is justified because the ends sometimes justify the means. There's now a worrying fusion of information and entertainment. I agree with that. I mean, look at like night shows like Jimmy Kimmel, Stephen Colbert. They're entertainment, but but it's basically just information from the left. So I do agree with that. There is a worrying fusion. I don't put strongly agree because this, as it says, there is now a worrying. It's always been like that, but I do agree with that statement fundamentally. Now, looking at the economy, sorry about this, getting an ad popping up. People are divided more by class than nationality. Very interesting. Whew, this is a tough question. I tend to agree with this. Um, I think that, well, I can see both sides of it because if you have a middle class person from the United States and a middle class person from, let's say, Saudi Arabia, I think that they would not get along. They would not get along as well as a middle class person from the as an upper class person from the U.S. and Saudi Arabia. I think, but at the same time, it's by nationality, not by like culture. So I do agree with that. I think that the rich and the elites tend to probably. Mm, I don't know. I'm putting a gray. I'm torn on this one. If there's a neutral, because like I see both sides of this argument, but I do agree. I think that nationality, it's possible to. I'm gonna put disagree actually. I think that I can see both sides of it honestly, but I think when it comes to like nat like if by because nationality, because like I think I would have less in common than I'm putting disagree. I don't want to get it. It's very complicated. My views on it. We'll just go skip to the next one. Controlling inflation is more important than controlling unemployment. I do agree with that. If everyone's employed, but they're not, but the money they make isn't worth anything, then what's the point of being employed? Like we're seeing that right now. Because corporations cannot be trusted to voluntarily protect the environment, they require regulation. Agree. I'm not like Green New Deal type, but I mean look at our country. Look at how like, drive on any highway, drive anywhere in the country, and you just see plastic and pollution all over the country, and they pollute our water supply. Our water is full of plastic and other metals. It's disgusting, and I do believe that corporations do require some regulation to protect the environment. Because when it comes down to it, we saw with the Industrial Revolution, even the corporations really don't care. Strongly disagree. Strongly disagree. I'm not communist. This communism is disgusting. The freer the market, the freer people. I tend to agree. Uh, you do need some regulations, but overall, I do agree with that statement. As a sad reflection on our society, it's something as basic as drinking water is now a bottled branded consumer product. Strongly disagree. If you really want water that badly, just like boil some from a creek. You choose to buy that water. Land should not be a commodity bought and sold. Strongly disagree. Land should be a commodity we bought and sold. Then I mean, this is like the Native Americans. They didn't sell land. They used land. They traded land between tribes. Yeah, this is land should be a commodity bought and sold. Land is something that you should sell. It is regrettable that many personal fortunes are made by people who simply manipulate money and contribute nothing to society. I disagree. Some of these people that you say, like, I'm assuming they're talking about the stock market. Some of these people are the smartest people out there. They know how to use money. They know how to use the system to make a lot of money for themselves. So I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with that. Protectionism is necessary in trade. Strongly agree. Protectionism is the biggest reason I support Donald Trump. It's protection. Free trade has hollowed out communities across the Midwest. Because of that, I'm a big supporter of protectionism at all costs. The only social responsibility of a company should be to deliver a profit to its shareholders. I disagree. Companies should companies should be. I'm not saying that the government should force them to do anything, but in my opinion, they should. The government should not force a company to do more than just deliver a profit, but companies should on their own, have charity funds to like donate money, stuff like that. So I do agree with that. I disagree. I think that companies should do more than just give profit to their shareholders, but the government should not force them to do so. The rich are too highly taxed. Honestly, I agree. The rich are not paying enough because of loopholes, but overall they are too highly taxed. Yes, the actual tax code itself has the rich too highly taxed, but they don't pay that much. So there's a weird loophole. It's a weird issue, but I do agree overall the rich are too highly taxed. Those with the ability to pay should have access to higher standards of medical care. I agree with that. That's just common sense. If I have $10 and you have $100, then you will get better quality whatever you get. Same with healthcare. Not saying it's right, not saying it's wrong. That's just how society works. Government should penalize businesses that mislead the public. Overall, eh, overall I agree. Like if the government if there's like some company out there saying take this product, it'll like I don't know heal you, but it ends up killing you, then yeah, the government should punish that business. But there's someone online talking about like elections, or if they misuse that as like just an anti-conservative and just crack down on free speech, then I am opposed to that. But overall, I do agree that you can't just have anyone saying whatever they want. So I do kind of agree with that. A genuine free market requires restrictions on the ability of particular multinationals to create monopolies. I do agree with that. You cannot. You have to. I mean, monopolies. I'm big business. I'm iffy on. Overall, I support the idea of big business, but it has some cringe parts of it. So I do agree. Even in a complete free market, you do need to restrict some. You need to have some restrictions because if you just have complete freedom, then one company is going to take over everything, and then they're going to smash any kind of challenge. And it's not really a free market. So I do agree. You do need some restrictions. Social values. This should be interesting. Sorry about that. Ad keep popping up. Abortion, when a woman's life is not threatened, should always be illegal. Strongly agree. Abortion is genocide. Abortion is disgusting. I think it's so funny that in society, how we're so focused on like, oh, social justice and people's feelings, when we literally, when the same people that say social justice and Black Lives Matter support the murdering of babies, it's disgusting. I mean, I am pro-life in all cases. It's literally abortion nowadays is the most disgusting thing. It's awful, and I hate it. And my goal in life is to overturn Roe v. Wade and make abortion illegal in the United States. That's my goal in life. That's my biggest thing, and my biggest political issue is abortion. So honestly, I'm at least kind of moderate on most issues. Like I'm super right on some issues, but I at least understand where the other side is coming from. Abortion is that one issue that I'm not on. I'm always going to be pro-life. I think abortion should be outlawed in all circumstances. All authority should be questioned. Strongly agree. I don't trust anyone, especially the government or corporations. Nobody, honestly, no one who's a quote unquote elite or in power at this point in time has your best interest in mind. A question all authority. Not saying like revolt against them, but at least like think. At least don't just say, oh, okay, they said this. Let's do that. At least say, if we do this, what's the impact? That's all I'm saying. So all authority should be questions. Eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. Disagree. Strongly disagree. Actually, my Catholic faith. Not only is my Catholic faith opposed to this, but I am opposed to this as well. I just don't think it makes sense to me. Taxpayers should not be expected to prop up theaters or museums that cannot survive on commercial basis. This is an interesting question. I honestly, theaters, yes. Museums, no. Museums help preserve our culture. They help preserve our history. So I do tend. Well, actually, no. I disagree with this. I think that theaters. I think that if a theater cannot survive on its own, taxpayers should not support it. But a museum or something that preserves our culture and our history, I do agree taxpayers should suck it up and pay for it because we do need that stuff for our culture to run. We have to remember our history. So I do support. I do kind of agree. I disagree with that. I think that we should spend our even if it could not survive on a commercial basis because it preserves our culture and our history. We do need to promote that. Schools should not make classroom attendance compulsory. I agree with that actually. I think that I think if you don't want to go to school, then you should then face the consequences. If you do go to school and if you don't go to school and you fail and you drop out and you become unemployed at like 16 and homeless at 16, that's on you. You didn't go to school. I think the current education system is cucked, by the way. I think it's awful. I think we need to completely redo our education system. But so that's another reason I support that. I think people like once you get to high school, you should already have some ideas about where you're strongest at. So you should instead of like going just to main high school and taking every class, you should refine your skills you're good at. Maybe start going to trade schools if you're like good at math, do more math featured stuff, and really just find just in general. So I think the current education system is screwed. I think it's awful. If I ever get into politics, one of the biggest things I'm going to do is redo the school system because we should not have children killing themselves because of stress over school. And a lot of that I know is just people being over dramatic. I'm not saying all suicides are. I think the school system is awful, and I think that it is causing a lot of mental health problems. But I think that there's technology also has an input on that. I'm ranting a bit. I apologize, but like I said, I have a big issue with the current education system. I think it's too focused on sending kids to college when we don't need people in college. There's so many good jobs that you can get by being a blue-collar worker without a college degree. And I think that the big part is that they want to make everything robotic. They want to have a bunch of people go to college and get indoctrinated. And then guess what? They have a society of people that basically think they're smart when they're really not. All people have their rights, but it's better for all of us that different sorts of people should stick to their own kind. Strongly disagree. I've never really understood this question, but from what I can tell, it's it's a little iffy. So I'm going to strongly disagree. Good parents have to spank their children. I agree with this, honestly. I think that there are in my generation, Gen Z has some absolute based fighters. So we have a lot of good people in my generation. We also have a lot of spoiled brats. I think that I'm not saying I think it should be the last resort, but I do think that if your kid is just being an absolute brat, yeah, go ahead, spank him. It is natural for children to keep some secrets with their parents. Strongly agree. Now, you could make the argument that that's more common today because of social media and just peer pressure, but kids have always kept secrets from their parents. Don't tell me that when you were like a kid, even like the 1950s or whenever, if you have any older people watching this, before social media, before anything, that you told your parents literally everything going on in your life. It's just natural for kids to keep some secrets from their parents. Possessing marijuana for personal use should not be a criminal offense. For possession, I agree. If you're gonna sell it, I think you should go to jail for a very long time. But if you're just gonna possess it, honestly, I have no issue with that. I think that marijuana, we have bigger issues than weed right now. So if you just have it on you, you know what? Get a fine. Maybe go to jail for for a little while. But it should not be a criminal offense. It should be it should just you get a fine or you go to jail for like a week or so, and you should get maybe even get rehabilitation in some scenarios. But if you're selling it, oh yeah, if you're selling marijuana, I hope you rot in jail for a very long time. But if you just have it on you and you're just smoking it with some friends or whatever, honestly, I don't see the big deal in that. Now, if you become addicted or you're doing awful stuff while you're high on it, then obviously that's a different scenario. But if you're just chilling in your, if you're just sitting in your basement, smoking some pot, watching some TV or whatever, I don't see the issue with that. The prime function of schooling should be equip the future generation to find jobs. I disagree with that. It should not. It should we should teach the future generation about eventually getting jobs, but it should also be about social skills, learning about our history, learning just how to be a good person. We also need how to cook, how to be a good mom or dad. There should be a lot more than just trying to find jobs. People with serious inheritable disabilities should not be allowed to reproduce. I disagree. Strongly disagree, honestly. I don't see the issue. If they find a partner who wants to have kids with them and they want to deal with the possibility that they consider that inheritable disease going to their child, that's not the government's job to regulate that. That's just genetics. The most important thing for kids to accept is discipline. I'm iffy on this. I tend to agree. I think you need. I think I tend to agree. Honestly, I don't know. I'm in the middle. I don't feel very strongly about it. There are no savage and civilized peoples, only different cultures. I tend to agree, but I think that there are some very bad people. But I think that it's talking more about like cultures. Like I think that there are bad apples in every culture, but I think overall every culture. I can't think of a culture that's completely every single person in it is uncivilized. Maybe like Satanism, but that's not really a culture. That's just a cult full of dumbasses. But that's besides the point. For example, I can't think of a single ethnicity or heritage that is inherently uncivilized or savage. I think that everyone has their different beliefs, everyone has their different cultures, and in some cases that's a good thing. Those who are able to work and refuse the opportunity should not expect society support. I strongly agree with that. If you're just going to be lazy and sit in your ass, you should be allowed to do that, but you shouldn't expect anyone to support you. When you have trouble, it's better not to think about it, but to keep busy with more cheerful things. Strongly disagree. You got to solve the problem. First generation immigrants can never be fully integrated within their new country. I agree. I actually strongly agree. If you grew up in like say Guatemala and you live there for 20 years and you get married, come to the United States and have a kid here illegally, you're not going to ever be fully integrated. You're going to still have you're going to still have your customs, your culture, your family ties. You're never going to be fully integrated. Second generation and beyond, absolutely, but not first generation. What's good for the most successful corporations is always ultimately good for all of us. Strongly disagree. Look how corporations have censored our free speech. They've given so much money to globalization. They've shipped our jobs overseas. Corporations are pretty cringe. Pretty cringe. So no, absolutely not. No broadcasting institution, however independent in its content, should receive public funding. I agree with that. I think things like NPR and stuff are cringe. They should not receive public funding. How you see the wider society. Our civil liberties are being excessively curved in the name of counterterrorism. Strongly agree. Look at the Patriot Act. A significant advantage of a one-party state is that it avoids all the arguments and delay. Yeah, absolutely. This is I don't support a dictatorship, but you have to admit that a one-party state will get things done faster. That's just a fact. You don't have any opposition. Although the electronic age makes surveillance easier, strongly disagree. The government is doing they're doing awful things with our phones, our computers, our laptops, everything. They're spying on you. They're watching you. It's not good. Strongly disagree. They're spying on everyone, not just criminals. The death penalty should be an option. I disagree. It's against my faith. Life begins at conception. If I'm pro-life because life begins at conception, I cannot be pro-death penalty because that evens out. The Catholic faith is very clear about this. Life begins at conception and ends at natural death. You cannot be pro-life and pro-death penalty. A very hot take on the right, I know, but that's just how I see it. At least if you're Catholic, in my opinion. If you look at the Catholic Catechism of the Catholic Church, life begins at conception, it ends at natural death. You cannot be pro-life and pro-death penalty, and vice versa. So because of that, I am opposed to the death penalty. Now, and I also think that it just makes more sense. I think it's honestly a worse punishment to just rot in jail behind bars. Like, if you get killed, you get out of it early. Like, I mean, you just get to die. But if you sit in jail for 30 years, possibly in solitary confinement, possibly getting beaten, depending on your crime and what prison you're in, I think that's a far worse fate than just closing your eyes. In a civilized society, one must always have people above to be obeyed and below to be commanded. I agree. That's what we believe as conservatives. We have to have a hierarchy. It's leftism and all that stuff. They believe that everyone's equal. Well, we believe that there is a hierarchy of some sorts. Abstract art, strong. Abstract art that doesn't represent anything should not be considered art at all. Strongly agree. A lot of what you see today is just, it's not even art. It's just, oh, look, I threw this on a canvas. Yeah, cool. Punishment should be more important than rehabilitation. I disagree. I think that you need to have some sort of rehabilitation. Some people cannot be rehabilitated, but I think overall, you need to be at least a little bit. I think like for certain offenses, yeah, they should be punished. But for a lot of offenses, it's just they grew up in the wrong neighborhood. They didn't have father figures. They're mentally deranged. So I think that overall, there's a lot more than just, oh, we need to punish them. I do believe it is a waste of time to rehabilitate some criminals, though. The business person and the manufacturer are more important than the writer and the artist. I strongly agree. Business person and manufacturer, they are the lifeline of our economy, and they're the lifeline of our society. I mean, if you look at places like where I live, everything was built around steel mills and shipping and the economy, manufacturing. And the society was great. Everything ran incredibly when that was around. And then all of a sudden, you have writers and artists kind of come in, they ship the jobs overseas, and everything falls apart. They're both important, but overall, the business person and the manufacturer are more important because they make the society truly run. Mothers have careers, but it's their first duty to be homemakers. I agree with that. I think I'm not. I like it or not, moms. You have a very important role. You need to be at home. You can have a job. I think that moms may have careers, but I think moms may have careers, but their first duty is to be homemakers. Yes, your first duty is to be a good mom and to take care of your home. And so I don't strongly agree because I think moms should have jobs, especially now because you need cause with money's tight. I think it, but I do agree. Moms have to put their role as being a mom first. Multinational corporations are unethically exploiting the plant genetic materials of developing countries. I agree, strongly agree. Actually, look at like places like the Congo and like South Africa, the mines there. It's disgusting. They have like 8-year-olds. It's like with West Virginia coal mines in the early 1900s, except it's going on today and it's being funded by companies like Tesla and Apple. It's disgusting, and because of that, yeah, that's a fact. Making peace with the establishment is an important aspect of maturity. I tend to agree with that. I don't think you should never suck up to the establishment, but you have to make peace that there is an establishment and that at this time they do have power over you. I hate the establishment. I hate the elites, but I understand that they are in power, and there's nothing I can do about that as of now. In the future, we may see. We're going to stick it to them. We are sticking it to them. But you know what? As of now, they are in power, and I have to accept that for now. For now. On propositions on religion. Astrology does not explain anything. Astrology is stupid. You cannot be moral without being religious. I disagree. I think it's very hard to do so, but there are definitely cases where you have morals and you are not religious. So I think that it's in the vast majority of cases that's true, but I do believe that there are some exceptions like what we've seen, and so I do disagree. Charity is better than Social Security. I agree with that. I think you do need some aspect of Social Security and welfare just in today's world. Ideally, we would never have Social Security, but because of just the way our government's run, getting rid of it is the dumbest thing because it just would destroy our country, honestly. And I know there are a lot of welfare queens who just live off of Social Security, but there are a lot of people who do use it. So Social Security is honestly kind of a good thing, in my opinion. That's very that's not a very popular take on the right, but we do need. I don't believe it should be nearly as prevalent as this day, but we do need to have some aspect of Social Security. But charity is just better because not only do you help the person who is down, but you also feel good because you know that you're helping them. So I do agree that charity is better. Some people are naturally unlucky. I agree with that. I never really understood the issue with unlucky and luck and whatever, but that's just true. I mean, some people are just naturally unlucky. It is important that my child's school instills religious values. I agree. Next page. Sex outside marriage is usually immoral. Strongly agree. That's another Another interesting take I have, not going to get into it, but just here I'll put it this way: if you have sex outside of marriage, I am not going to judge you, but I'm never going to do it. I am going to wait until I am married. If I ever get married, maybe I'll die a virgin. We'll see. But the fact I'm doing this and I'm going probably for what 10, 15, 20 minutes at this point, probably at least for 20 minutes at this point. Yeah, the fact I'm doing this probably says I will die a virgin, but that's okay because at least as long as I don't have sex, you know what? I'll get to live in heaven forever. So I will gladly accept that. A same-sex couple in a stable, loving relationship should not be excluded from the possibility of child adoption. Oof. Oof. It's a tough one. A very hot take. I tend to agree. Honestly, if I think that there should be a lot more regulation, and I think that heterosexual couples should be placed ahead of same-sex couples, and I think that same-sex couples should have a little more like work that in terms of like work, in terms of like like background checks and stuff to make sure that they really are in a good relationship and it's not just about the sex and they actually do care about the kid. But honestly, if there are two dads or if there are two men or two women that truly do love each other and truly want the best for the kid and there is no other option, you know what? They can have the kid. You know what? Because they're going to do a better job than the government is going to if the kid is in foster care. And not only that, but it's honestly just it's to a certain extent the right thing to do. Pornography should be legal. Strongly disagree. Pornography is disgusting. What goes on in a private bedroom between consenting adults has no business at the state. I tend to agree. I mean, obviously, you can make the argument for like drugs or like physical abuse, but over it says consenting, and overall, I tend to agree with that. No one can feel naturally homosexual. I disagree. I think you can feel naturally homosexual. These days, openness about sex has gone too far. Strongly agree. All right, let's see where we stand, boys. This is interesting. So look at the compass, right, left, economic, social, authoritarian, libertarian. This is a bullshit. Wow, okay. Huh. That is... I did not expect to be in the funny purple quadrant. I thought I would be around here. Huh, but I guess I'm more purple than anything. That really surprises me. But apparently I'm a little more libertarian than I thought I was. That surprises me a lot, actually. I thought it'd be like up here, honestly. I'm surprised I'm that libertarian. I mean, whatever. This is my results. Thanks for watching this video. Hope you enjoyed. Be sure to like and